Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves. I was reading through the latest financial outlook from Dell Technologies this morning, specifically their forecast for fiscal year 2027. And usually a corporate outlook is pretty dry reading, but this one seemed to paint a very specific picture of where capital is actually flowing in the tech sector right now.
It is a very clear report. It really cuts through a lot of the noise we hear about the technology market. Instead of, vague promises about the future, Dell gave us hard numbers.
Yeah.
And those numbers show a market that is essentially split in two. You have one side that is expanding rapidly and another side that is actually facing some serious constraints.
Right. And that is what we're going to do today. We are going to look at the headline, what Dell actually said, and then we are going to break down the winners and the losers based on this forecast. We have a specific list of companies and their ticker symbols to get through. But first, let us look at the setup here. What is the core dynamic Dell is reporting?
The core dynamic is a divergence. On one hand, you have data center capacity expanding because of this demand for artificial intelligence infrastructure. On the other hand, you have the traditional consumer electronics market, laptops, desktops, accessories.
And those are getting squeezed.
Exactly, squeezed by rising costs.
Okay, so let's start with the newsmaker, Dell Technologies. What exactly did they project that got everyone's attention?
The headline is that Dell, ticker DELL, projected its fiscal 2027 revenue to come in above Wall Street estimates.
And usually when a company beats estimates, it is because they sold a lot of everything. But that is not the case here, is it?
No, not at all. The driver here is singular. It is the demand for AI-optimized servers. Dell expects revenue from these specific machines to roughly double.
Double. I mean, that is a massive amount of hardware. But I want to pause on that term AI-optimized server. I think when people hear server, you probably think of that dusty black box in the office closet that hosts the company email.
Right, and that is definitely not what we're talking about here. These are massive systems. They're often the size of a refrigerator.
Wow.
They are packed with specialized chips, they run incredibly hot, and they require highly specialized power and cooling setups. The buyers for these aren't your local accounting firm. The buyers are the hyperscalers, the massive cloud platforms building out data centers to train and run AI models.
So when Dell says they're going to sell double the amount of these units, it is basically a proxy for that infrastructure build-out.
Exactly. It confirms that the dominant capital expenditure theme is AI infrastructure. And because these systems are so complex, selling one isn't just good for Dell. It is good for the companies that make the parts inside the box.
Which brings us to our first category of winners. The report calls this the AI infrastructure build-out. Let's start with the companies that actually put these things together. The server builders. Obviously, Dell is the main character here.
Yes, DELL is the primary signal. If you have a strong pipeline, it implies the market is healthy. But they aren't the only ones doing this.
Who else benefits if the market for these fridge-sized supercomputers is growing?
We have to look at Supermicro. You'll see them under the ticker SMCI.
Now, Supermicro is a bit different from Dell, isn't it? Dell is this legacy corporation. What is Supermicro's angle?
SMCI has carved out a niche by being very fast to market and specializing in modular designs. They act almost like a high-speed construction crew for these data centers.
A construction crew.
Yeah, they're very focused on the rack scale architecture, how you fit all these hot chips into a rack and keep them cool.
So if the demand is for speed and density, SMCI is in the mix. And then we have one more legacy player mentioned.
Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, ticker HPE.
And we should clarify for the listener, this is not the company that sells you a printer for your home office.
Correct. HPE is the enterprise-focused company. They compete directly with Dell and Supermicro for these corporate and government contracts. So the logic holds that if the tide is rising for Dell, it is likely rising for HPE and SMCI as well.
Okay, so that is the shell of the car. Now let's talk about the engine. You cannot have an AI server without the chips that do the math. This is category 2. AI compute chips and accelerators.
This is really where the value is concentrated. An AI server is basically a delivery vehicle for GPUs, graphics processing units.
And the logic here is simple math. If Dell ships more boxes, they need more chips to put in them.
Precisely. And the dominant name here, the one that inevitably comes up, is NVIDIA, ticker NVDA.
They are the standard right now.
They are. Their chips are the ones fueling the majority of this model training. But as the market expands, it can't rely on just one supplier.
Which brings in the competition.
AMD, ticker AMD. They are the key challenger in the high-performance accelerator space. As these hyperscalers look to diversify or just get their hands on whatever silicon they can find, AMD benefits.
So we have NVDA and AMD. Now I want to move to the third category of winners, and this is one I feel like people glaze over a bit because it sounds more technical. Data center memory and high-speed networking.
It sounds technical, but it is absolutely vital. Think of it this way. You have this incredibly fast engine, or the GPU. But if you can't feed it fuel the data fast enough, the engine stalls.
It is just sitting there idling.
Exactly. And in the world of AI, an idling chip is burning money. So you need two things. First, you need memory. But not just any memory. You need high bandwidth memory.
And who makes that?
Micron, ticker MU.
Really?
They're a major supplier of the DRAM, and specifically the high-performance memory stacks that sit right next to those GPUs.
So MU is the fuel line. What about the networking?
That is the traffic control. When you are training an AI model, you aren't using one chip. You are using thousands of chips spanning across hundreds of servers, all talking to each other at the exact same time.
So they need to be connected.
They need to be connected with zero delay.
Yeah.
That is where Broadcom comes in, ticker AVGO.
Yeah.
They make the custom silicon and the switches that route that traffic.
And there is another name often paired with them, right?
Arista Networks, ticker ANET. Arista specializes in high-speed cloud networking. If Dell is selling rack-scale systems, those racks need to be plugged into a network that can handle terabytes of data per second. That is Arista's playground.
So just to recap the winners side of this forecast, we have the builders, DELL, SMCI, HPE. We have the brains, NVDA, AMD. And we have the plumbing and memory, MU, AVGO, ANET. It sounds like a party if you were in that ecosystem.
It is a strong sector.
Yep.
But as we established at the top, there is a downside.
Let's pivot to that. The losers, or the areas facing what is called a cost squeeze. Explain the mechanics of this squeeze. Why does Dell selling servers make life harder for someone else?
It comes down to supply and demand for components,
Mm-hmm.
specifically memory. We just talked about how much memory these AI servers need. They're gobbling up the global supply of DRAM and NAND.
So there is less to go around.
Yes, to go around. And the manufacturers, like Micron, are shifting their production lines to make the high-profit AI memory. That leaves fewer lines making the standard memory used in consumer laptops and PCs.
Which means the price of that standard memory goes up.
It creates inflation in the component market.
Mm.
And that brings us to category one of the losers. PC-heavy consumer hardware exposure.
So companies that make laptops for you and me.
Correct. The prime example here is HP Inc., ticker HPQ.
And just to distinguish again, HPQ is the consumer and commercial PC company, completely separate from HPE, which does the servers.
Right. If you are HPQ, your costs to build a laptop are going up because memory is more expensive. You have a choice. You either eat that cost and make less profit, or you raise the price of the laptop.
And if they raise the price,
Consumers pull back. We are already seeing a consumer base that is a bit stretched. If a laptop is $50 more expensive, maybe just keep your old one for another year.
it extends the upgrade cycle. And I assume this impacts the companies that sell things that go with computers too.
Yes. Look at Logitech, ticker LOGI. They make mice, keyboards, webcams. These are often attached to new PC purchases. If PC sales slow down because of pricing pressure, Logitech sells fewer mice.
So HPQ and LOGI are in the blast zone of this cost squeeze. But it trickles down further, doesn't it, to the places where we actually buy this stuff.
Category 2, consumer electronics retailers.
Right.
If demand for gadgets softens because prices are high and the wow factor isn't there, the retailers suffer.
Who are we looking at here?
Best Buy is the classic example, ticker BEBY. Their entire business model revolves around the consumer electronics cycle. If that cycle stalls, their inventory turnover slows down.
And what about online retail?
Amazon is exposed here too, ticker AMZN. Now, obviously, Amazon has a massive cloud business, AWS, that actually benefits from the AI build-out. But the retail side of their business, the e-commerce store where they sell Kindles and laptops and TVs, is exposed to this same consumer hesitation.
That is a very important distinction. AMZN is a bit of a hybrid, but the retail side is definitely facing headwinds here.
Exactly.
Now, there is one final category of losers, and this one deals with storage. Category 3, margin-pressured hardware names. Who fits in here?
This refers to companies like Western Digital, ticker WDC, and Seagate Technology, ticker STX.
These are the companies that make hard drives and solid-state drives. Why are they under pressure? Don't AI servers need storage too?
They do, but these companies are caught in a difficult financial position. They are facing rapid input cost inflation. The parts they need to build their drives are getting more expensive.
So it is the exact same margin problem HPQ has.
Yes. but often with even tighter margins to begin with. If they can't raise prices fast enough to offset the rising cost of materials, their profitability takes a hit.
And if they do raise prices,
They risk killing demand in the enterprise and consumer markets that aren't part of the AI boom.
it seems like a tough spot. You have to thread a needle between losing money on every sale or not making a sale at all.
That is the challenge.
So let's summarize the losers or the risk-exposed group. We have the PC makers like HPQ and accessory makers like LOGI. We have the retailers like BBY and the retail arm of AMZN. And we have the storage vendors like WDC and STX facing margin pressure.
It creates a very clear picture. The capital is flowing into the infrastructure build-out, causing inflation in components, which then puts pressure on the consumer and the companies that serve them.
It is almost like the AI market is cannibalizing the resources of the traditional PC market.
That is a fair way to look at it.
Yeah.
The priority right now is clearly on the data center.
So taking a step back, looking at this Dell FY2027 outlook as a whole, what is the synthesis?
The synthesis is that the market is in build-out mode. This is bullish for the components of that build, the servers, the GPUs, the memory, the networking. The report confirms that this spending is real and it is accelerating.
But the risk is that this isn't a tide lifting all boats.
No. The risk is cost-driven demand destruction on the consumer side. It is a two-speed market. You have to be very careful about which part of the hardware ecosystem you are looking at. You can't just buy tech and expect it all to move in the same direction.
That is a crucial takeaway for anyone looking at this sector.
It really is.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. We see this aggressive build-out, and we see the pressure it puts on the consumer wallet. The question is, how durable is this build-out mode if the consumer end market continues to soften? If people stop buying the laptops and the subscriptions that ultimately pay for all this AI utility, at what point does the infrastructure spending hit a wall?
That is the long-term question.
Mm-hmm.
Can the infrastructure justify itself without a healthy consumer base?
Something to keep an eye on as these earnings reports continue to roll out. And a reminder, this is not financial advice or buy or sell recommendations. This is purely the opinion of the author.
Thanks for listening to Breaking News to Trading Moves. We'll see you next time.